The Admiral's voice cut through the room like a knife. "I said stand down, now!" Every officer froze. The cocky lieutenant, who had been laughing 5 seconds ago, turned white as a sheet. Because the girl in handcuffs, the 20-year-old cleaning girl they had mocked, humiliated, and arrested for stolen valor, was about to become the most classified secret in the United States Navy. Naval Medical Center, San Diego. December 2024. A military conference that would change everything. Before we begin this incredible journey, please subscribe to our channel and stay until the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The mop hit the floor with a wet slap. Maya Sterling kept her head down, her hands moving in the same repetitive rhythm she'd perfected over 18 months. Push, pull, ring, repeat. The fluorescent lights of Naval Medical Center San Diego hummed overhead, casting their sterile glow across the polished linoleum. She was invisible here. That was the point. 20 years old, 5'6", 130 pounds soaking wet, brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, uniform 2 sizes too big because the supply office never had anything that fit properly. Just another cleaning girl pushing a mop bucket through hallways she had no business being in. At least that's what everyone assumed. "Watch it!" A shoulder slammed into hers. The mop clattered against the wall. Maya stumbled but didn't fall. Her balance was too good for that, trained into her bones through years of practice she couldn't talk about. Lieutenant Commander Derek Holloway stood over her, his dress whites immaculate, his jaw set in the kind of arrogant angle that came from never hearing the word no. 32-years-old son of Admiral Theodore Holloway, Golden Boy of the Pacific Fleet. "Are you blind or just stupid?" he snapped. Maya kept her eyes down. "I'm sorry, sir. It won't happen again." "Damn right it won't." Holloway turned to the 2 officers flanking him, Lieutenant Peters and Lieutenant Commander Reyes. His voice dropped to a stage whisper, loud enough for her to hear. "This is what happens when they let civilians into secure facilities. Can't even mop a floor without causing problems." Peters snickered. "At least she's not in the conference room. Can you imagine classified briefings while Cinderella here scrubs the baseboards?" "She'd probably try to take notes," Reyes added. "Sell them to the highest bidder." Nah, Holloway's smile was cruel. She'd need to be able to read first. They laughed. All 3 of them right there in the hallway, laughing at the cleaning girl, who couldn't possibly understand what was happening in the VIP conference room 20 feet away. Maya's jaw tightened. Her fingers flexed around the mop handle, a movement so small no one noticed. No one ever noticed. That was also the point. "Get back to work," Holloway said, already walking away. "And stay out of our way. The adults have important things to do." She watched them go, watched Holloway push through the conference room doors like he owned the building, watched the doors swing shut behind him, muffling the sound of raised voices inside. 3 American hostages, 96 hours until execution. Intelligence suggesting a location in Yemen that Maya knew with absolute certainty was wrong. She'd spent 8 months embedded with the cell that took them. She'd planted tracking devices on every high-value target before her extraction. She knew exactly where those hostages were being held. And no one would ever believe her. The mop resumed its rhythm. Push, pull, ring, repeat. Inside the conference room, Admiral James Crawford stood at the head of a table lined with enough brass to start a small war. His 4 stars gleamed under the overhead lights, but his face was drawn, exhausted. 62 years old, and he looked every day of it right now. "The intelligence is solid," Colonel Morrison was saying, pointing at a satellite image projected on the wall. "Thermal signatures confirm multiple individuals at this location. We have a 72-hour window before they move the hostages. And if the intelligence is wrong, Crawford asked. It's not wrong, sir. 3 separate sources have confirmed. 3 sources can all be fed the same disinformation. Crawford's voice was sharp. I've seen it happen before. Hell, I've made it happen before. Holloway leaned forward. Admiral, with respect, we don't have time for second guessing. Senator Chen's son is one of those hostages. The political pressure. I'm aware of the political pressure, Lieutenant Commander. Crawford's eyes were cold. I'm also aware that if we send a team to the wrong location, we don't just fail to rescue the hostages. We confirm to the enemy that we're coming, and they execute everyone before we can regroup. Silence fell over the room. Crawford stared at the satellite image. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his gut, that instinct that had kept him alive through 4 decades of service. But instinct wasn't evidence, and evidence was all he had. Proceed with planning, he said finally. But I want contingencies. I want backup plans for our backup plans. And I want someone triple-checking every piece of intelligence we have. Yes, sir. The meeting continued. Outside the door, a cleaning girl with secrets she couldn't tell kept mopping the same stretch of floor, listening to every word that leaked through the gap beneath the door. The base was quiet at 2300 hours. Maya moved through the corridors with practiced ease, her cleaning cart providing the perfect cover. Badge swipe here, nod to the security guard there. Just another overnight shift, just another invisible worker doing a job no one wanted to notice. She reached the records room at 2317. The terminal inside was supposed to be secure. Classified access, only biometric verification, the works. But Maya knew something the security designers didn't. There was a back door in the system, a vulnerability she'd helped identify during her training 3 years ago. A vulnerability that was supposed to have been patched, but never was. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. The screen flickered. Code scrolled past authentication protocols, access logs, encrypted files. She wasn't here to steal anything. She was here to verify what she already knew. The official intelligence was wrong. The hostage location they'd identified was a decoy, a trap designed to draw in the rescue team and eliminate them. The real site was 40 kilometers east, in an abandoned Soviet-era bunker system that didn't appear on any current maps. Maya had the coordinates memorized. She'd walked those tunnels herself, counting steps, noting defensive positions, identifying weaknesses. She'd done everything right. And then she'd been extracted. Pulled out 3 weeks before the hostages were taken, reassigned to a cooling-off period that had somehow turned into 18 months of pushing a mop. Someone had buried her. Someone high up. Someone who didn't want her anywhere near active operations. The question was why the file she needed appeared on screen. Operation Desert Lance, the rescue mission being planned in that conference room. She scrolled through the intelligence summary, the asset reports, the satellite analysis. All of it pointed to the wrong location. All of it was going to get good people killed. Maya pulled a flash drive from her pocket. She didn't need the files, she needed proof. Proof that the intelligence had been manipulated. Proof that someone was feeding false information to the planning team. Proof that freeze, don't move. The door slammed open. 4 MPs rushed in, weapons drawn, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. Maya's hands went up slowly. The flash drive was still in the terminal. She hadn't had time to eject it. Step away from the computer. Now. She stepped back. One of the MPs grabbed her arms, wrenched them behind her back. Cold metal bit into her wrists as the handcuffs clicked shut. Maya Sterling, the lead MP read from his tablet. You are under arrest for unauthorized access to classified materials, espionage, and impersonating military personnel. Impersonating? Maya's voice was calm. Too calm for someone who'd just been caught red-handed. I haven't impersonated anyone. That's not what your file says. The MP turned the tablet toward her. According to your employment records, you claimed prior military service during your background check. Navy SEAL training specifically. Another MP laughed. A SEAL? You? That's the best one I've heard all year. It's not a claim. It's the truth. Sure it is, sweetheart. The lead MP grabbed her arm. Tell it to the investigators. Move. They marched her out of the records room down the corridor, past the security checkpoint where the guard she'd nodded to earlier now stared at her with a mixture of confusion and contempt. Past the cleaning cart she'd never push again. Past the conference room where the brass were still planning a rescue mission that would fail. Into the back of a security vehicle that smelled of sweat and fear and all the bad decisions that had led other people to this same seat. The doors slammed shut. The engine started, and Maya Sterling, cleaning girl, alleged spy, supposed stolen valor case, closed her eyes and waited for what came next. The interrogation room was everything she expected. Concrete walls, steel table, one-way mirror, fluorescent lights designed to make everyone look guilty. She'd been in rooms like this before on the other side of the table asking questions instead of answering them. Funny how things changed. Captain Marcus Reeves sat across from her, a file folder open in front of him. 45 years old career security officer, the kind of man who'd seen enough criminals to think he could spot them on sight. He thought he was looking at one now. Let's start simple, Reeves said. What were you doing in that records room, looking for information? What kind of information? The kind I can't discuss with someone at your clearance level. Reeves's jaw tightened. I have top-secret clearance, Ms. Sterling. There's nothing on this base I don't have access to. Then you should know there are levels above top secret. Compartmented programs, black operations, things that don't officially exist. Maya met his eyes. Things like me. Like you. Reeves leaned back. A 20-year-old cleaning girl with a GED and an employment history that includes a Denny's in Bakersfield. That's who you're telling me is involved in classified operations. I'm telling you my cover worked exactly as intended. Your cover? Reeves almost smiled. Okay, let's talk about your cover. According to your background check, you claim to have completed BUDS training in 2022. You claim to have served with a SEAL team for 18 months before transitioning to, and I'm quoting here, special assignments. Is that accurate? Yes. There are no female Navy SEALs, Ms. Sterling. There have never been any female Navy SEALs. The training program has been open to women since 2016, but not a single one has completed it. Not officially. Reeves's smile faded. What does that mean? It means there are programs that don't appear in official records. Experimental initiatives, cross-branch selections, operations that require capabilities the standard pipeline doesn't provide. Maya's voice was steady. It means I'm exactly who I say I am, and the fact that you can't verify it is by design. By design? Reeves closed the folder. That's very convenient. It's not convenient at all. It's the reason I'm sitting here in handcuffs instead of briefing your Admiral on why his rescue mission is about to fail. Something flickered in Reeves's expression. Doubt. Just a sliver of it, but enough. What do you know about the rescue mission? I know the intelligence is wrong. I know the location they've identified is a decoy. I know that if they send a team there, they'll be walking into an ambush designed to eliminate them and ensure the hostages are never recovered. And how exactly do you know all this? Maya was quiet for a moment. Then, because I spent 8 months with the people who took them. I know their faces. I know their names. I know where they eat, where they sleep, where they pray. I know the bunker system where the hostages are actually being held 40 kilometers east of the target your analysts identified. Reeves stared at her. You're telling me you were undercover with a terrorist cell? I'm telling you I completed my mission. I'm telling you I was extracted before I could report my final intelligence. And I'm telling you that someone in your chain of command has been feeding false information to ensure this rescue fails. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation. Reeves stood up, paced to the one-way mirror, stood there for a long moment, his reflection staring back at him. If you're lying, he said slowly, you're looking at federal charges. Espionage, stolen valor, unauthorized access to classified materials. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. I know. And if you're telling the truth, then you need to get someone with Omega-level clearance in here. Now, before 72 hours becomes 0, and 3 Americans die because no one believed the cleaning girl. Reeves turned to face her. There's no such thing as Omega-level clearance. Maya almost smiled. Then I guess we're done here. The word spread through the base like wildfire. By 600, everyone had heard some version of the story. A cleaning girl, a stolen valor case, claims of being a Navy SEAL, caught red-handed accessing classified files, probably a spy, probably crazy, probably both. Derek Holloway heard it in the officer's mess, and he laughed so hard he nearly choked on his coffee. The mop girl. He wiped tears from his eyes. The one from yesterday, she said she was a SEAL. Apparently. Peter shook his head. Can you imagine 5'0" skinny as a rail and she thinks she survived Hell Week? She probably watched some documentary and decided she was special. Holloway's smile was vicious. Women like that, they can't accept that some things aren't meant for them, so they make up stories, pretend they're something they're not. The base commander wants her psychologically evaluated, Reyes added. They think she might be delusional. Delusional is right. Holloway stood up. Come on! I want to see this for myself. The holding area wasn't designed for visitors. But Holloway had his father's name, and his father's connections and doors that should have stayed closed swung open at his approach. He walked past the security desk, with a nod past the duty officer, with a smile right up to the cell where Maya Sterling sat on a metal bench, her hands still cuffed, her eyes closed. Well, well. Holloway crossed his arms, leaning against the bars. Cinderella herself. I heard you've been telling stories. Maya didn't open her eyes. Lieutenant Commander Holloway, don't you have a conference to attend? Don't you have a floor to mop? He laughed at his own joke. Oh, wait, that's right. You're too busy pretending to be a Navy SEAL. Tell me, did you think anyone would actually believe you? I don't need anyone to believe me. Obviously not, because no one does. Holloway moved closer to the bars. Do you know what real SEALs go through Hell Week? 5.5 days of continuous training on 4 hours of sleep. Cold water immersion until your body temperature drops to levels that should kill you. Physical demands that break 90% of the men who attempt it. I know. You know. He snorted. You know because you read about it, because you watched videos, because you fantasized about being something you could never be. Maya opened her eyes. Something in them made Holloway take a step back. Something cold. Something dangerous. Something that didn't belong in the eyes of a 20-year-old cleaning girl from Bakersfield. Hell Week, she said quietly. Day 4, surf torture, winter cycle, Water temperature 58 degrees. Hypothermia sets in at 90 minutes. Instructors rotate you out at 87. They time it precisely punishment without liability. Holloway's smile faltered. Drown-proofing evolution. They changed the protocol in 2011 after a near fatality. Hands and feet bound safety diver at depth. Pool competency test requires treading water for 5 minutes with hands tied, then retrieving a face mask from the bottom using only your teeth. Anyone can read that online. Log PT. Boat crews carry telephone poles called logs. Average weight 160 pounds. 6-man crews. 4-mile soft sand runs with the log overhead. Best time I've seen was 42 minutes. My crew did it in 38. She stood up, moved to the bars. Close enough that Holloway could see the faint scars on her knuckles, the slight calluses on her palms, the way she held herself like someone who knew exactly how much damage she could inflict in exactly how much time. I know what real SEALs go through, Lieutenant Commander. I know because I went through it. I survived it. I earned my place. And I did it while men like you stood on the sidelines protected by your daddy's name telling women they didn't belong. Holloway's face flushed red. You're insane. Maybe. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. But in 72 hours when your rescue mission fails and 3 Americans die, remember this moment. Remember that the insane cleaning girl tried to warn you. Remember that you laughed. The rescue mission is going to succeed. The rescue mission is headed to the wrong location. The intelligence has been compromised. Someone on this base, someone with access to Admiral Crawford's briefings, has been feeding information to the enemy. Holloway went pale. That's impossible. Is it? Maya tilted her head. You were in that conference room, Lieutenant Commander. You heard the intelligence reports. You saw the satellite images. Did anything feel wrong to you? Did anything seem too convenient, too clean, too easy? He didn't answer, but she could see it in his eyes, the doubt. The tiny seed of uncertainty that would grow and grow until it consumed him. Get out of here, she said. Go back to your meeting. Play soldier with the other officers. But when this is over, when the bodies are counted and the investigations begin, remember, I tried to help, and you laughed. Holloway stumbled backward. His composure was cracked now, his arrogance shaken. He turned and walked away without another word, his footsteps echoing off the concrete walls. Maya watched him go. Then she returned to the bench, sat down, and closed her eyes. The clock was ticking. 71 hours and 43 minutes until the execution deadline. And somewhere up the chain of command, someone was making phone calls. Admiral James Crawford was in his office when the secure line rang. He'd been staring at the same intelligence report for 2 hours, trying to identify what his gut was screaming at him to see. Something was wrong. Something was missing. But every time he thought he'd found it, the data pushed back, reassured him, told him everything was fine. The phone kept ringing. He picked it up. Crawford? Admiral, it's Captain Reeves, base security. What is it, Captain, I'm in the middle of? Sir, I need you to come to the holding facility, now. Crawford's hand tightened on the receiver. Why? Because we have a situation that's above my pay grade. Way above. And the person at the center of it is asking for someone with... Reeves hesitated. Omega-level clearance. The world stopped. Crawford hadn't heard that term in 15 years. Not since the program was shut down. Not since the operators were scattered to the winds, their files buried, their identities erased. Not since he'd personally recruited a 17-year-old foster kid who'd saved a SEAL's life with nothing but a mop handle and 3 seconds of impossible courage. Who is it? His voice was barely a whisper. She says her name is Maya Sterling. She says she's Phoenix 7. She says... Another hesitation. She says the rescue mission is compromised, that someone on your staff is feeding information to the enemy, that if we don't change the plan, everyone dies. Crawford closed his eyes. Phoenix 7. The youngest operator he'd ever recruited. The girl he'd sent into darkness and then lost track of when the bureaucracy buried her in red tape and reassignments. She was alive. She was here. And she was trying to warn him. "I'm on my way," he said. "And Captain, don't let anyone else near her. Anyone. That's an order." He hung up the phone and reached for his coat. The game had just changed completely. The helicopter touched down at 0347 hours. Admiral Crawford hadn't waited for a car. He'd commandeered the first aircraft available, pulled rank in ways he hadn't done in 20 years, and made the 15-minute flight feel like 15 hours. Every second that passed was another second closer to disaster. Captain Reeves met him at the landing pad, practically running to keep up, as Crawford strode toward the holding facility. "Sir, I need to brief you on later." "But the situation..." "I said later, Captain." Crawford's voice left no room for argument. "Where is she?" "Interrogation room 3. Sir, I have to tell you her story is..." Crawford stopped walking, turned to face Reeves with eyes that had commanded fleets and buried friends. "Her story is classified above anything you've ever touched in your career. Whatever she told you, forget it. Whatever you think you know, you don't. Am I clear?" Reeves swallowed. "Crystal, sir." "Good. Now take me to her." They walked in silence through corridors that felt too long past security checkpoints that felt too slow until they reached a steel door with 2 armed guards standing at attention. Crawford dismissed them with a look, dismissed Reeves with another. Then he opened the door. Maya was exactly where she'd been for hours, sitting on the metal bench, hands cuffed, eyes closed. But she opened them when he entered, and for a moment neither of them spoke. She looked older than 20. That was the first thing he noticed. The girl he'd recruited 3 years ago had been fierce, but young, burning with the kind of fire that either forged steel or consumed everything. The woman in front of him now had been tempered by something that left marks in the spaces between heartbeats. "Admiral?" Her voice was steady. "Took you long enough?" Crawford closed the door behind him. "Phoenix. Don't call me that. Not here. Walls have ears. The room is secure. No room is ever secure. You taught me that." He almost smiled. Almost. "I taught you a lot of things. Apparently not enough about staying off the radar." "I was off the radar. 18 months of mopping floors and emptying trash cans. Then 3 Americans got taken, and I realized my radar silence was going to get them killed." She stood up the chains between her wrists, clinking softly. "The intelligence is wrong, sir. The rescue team is walking into a trap." "I know." Maya blinked. "You know, I've known something was wrong since the first briefing. I just couldn't prove it." Crawford moved closer, lowered his voice. "The intelligence came through channels I don't trust anymore. Sources that feel manufactured. Everything too clean, too convenient. It's not just manufactured. It's compromised." Maya's eyes were intense now. "Someone on your staff is feeding information to the enemy. Someone with access to everything. Do you have a name?" "Not yet. But I know how to find one." She lifted her cuffed hands. "If you get these off me." Crawford studied her for a long moment. The girl who'd stopped a suicide bomber with a mop handle. The recruit who'd survived training that broke men twice her size. The operator who'd spent 8 months living among people who would have killed her slowly if they'd known the truth. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a key, unlocked the handcuffs himself. "Welcome back, Phoenix." Maya rubbed her wrists. "I was never gone, just buried." "I know, and I'm sorry for that. The program was shut down, assets scattered. You lost track of me because someone wanted you to." Her voice was sharp now. "Someone high enough to redirect my assignments. Someone who wanted me as far from active operations as possible." "Who? That's what we need to find out. But first we need to stop that rescue mission before it gets everyone killed." Crawford nodded slowly. "I can delay the launch. Buy us time, but I need something concrete to take to the Joint Chiefs. A name. Evidence. Something more than the word of a cleaning girl. I can give you more than that." Maya's jaw tightened. "I can give you the real location of the hostages. I can give you the layout of the bunker system where they're being held. I can give you the defensive positions, the patrol rotations, the extraction routes." "How?" "Because I spent 8 months memorizing every detail. Because I planted tracking devices on every high-value target before my extraction. And because those devices activated 6 hours ago." She paused. "The hostages are 40 kilometers east of the official target. Soviet-era bunker complex. 3 kilometers of underground tunnels. 40-plus hostiles. 71 hours until the execution deadline." Crawford exhaled. "You're certain?" "I'm certain. The question is whether you're willing to trust me." "I recruited you personally, Phoenix. I've trusted you since you were 17 years old." "Then prove it." Maya stepped closer. "Let me lead the extraction. Give me a team, give me transport, and let me do what I was trained to do." The Admiral was quiet for a moment. The weight of 4 decades pressed down on his shoulders. Every decision, every sacrifice, every good soldier he'd sent into darkness and never seen again. "There's a condition," he said finally. "Name it." "You take Lieutenant Commander Holloway with you." Maya's expression didn't change, but something hardened behind her eyes. "The officer who arrested me, the one who laughed in my face and called me a fake. His father is Admiral Theodore Holloway, my political rival. If this mission fails, if anything goes wrong, I need a witness from the other side. Someone who can testify that we did everything possible. You want me to babysit your political insurance policy while trying to rescue 3 Americans from a terrorist stronghold. I want you to prove him wrong." Crawford's voice softened. "I want you to show everyone what Phoenix operators are capable of. I want him to see with his own eyes that the cleaning girl he mocked is worth more than his entire career." Maya was silent. Her hands flexed at her sides, a tell one of the few she had. She was weighing options, calculating risks, deciding whether the satisfaction of proving Holloway wrong was worth the danger of having him on her team. "Fine," she said, "but he follows my orders. No questions, no arguments. The moment he becomes a liability, I leave him behind." "Agreed." "And I choose the rest of my team." "Also agreed." Crawford pulled out his phone. "Who do you need?" Maya didn't hesitate. "Jackson Brennan, call sign Hawk. He was my instructor at the farm. Best tactical mind I've ever worked with. Brennan retired 2 years ago." "Then unretire him." Crawford's fingers moved across the screen. "Who else?" "Elena Vasquez, combat medic. We worked together in Syria before the program was shut down. She's the only reason I survived my extraction." "Vasquez is stationed in Germany." "Then get her on a plane." "Anyone else?" Maya hesitated. Just for a second. "Tommy Chen, Senator Chen's nephew, tech specialist. He's been trying to get assigned to the rescue mission since his cousin was taken." "That's a conflict of interest." "That's motivation. He'll work harder than anyone because it's personal, and I need someone who can hack the bunker's communication system while we're inside." Crawford finished typing, looked up at her. This is a suicide mission, Phoenix. You know that. Every mission is a suicide mission until it's not. Maya met his eyes. I've walked into worse odds and walked out alive. I'll do it again. And if you don't walk out, then you make sure the world knows the truth. About me. About the program. About the operators who gave everything and got nothing but redacted files and forgotten graves. Her voice cracked, just barely. We deserve that much, at least. Crawford nodded. You have my word. Then we have a deal. She extended her hand. He took it. And for a moment they weren't Admiral and Operator. They were two soldiers who understood exactly what they were asking of each other. One more thing, Crawford said. The press is already sniffing around. Senator Chen is making noise. If word gets out that we're launching a secondary mission based on intelligence from a cleaning girl, from an unverified source, the political fallout will be catastrophic. Then don't let word get out. Maya's smile was thin. That's what ghosts are for, Admiral. We do the impossible so everyone else can pretend it never happened. Crawford released her hand. The team will assemble in 4 hours. Briefing room 7. Full tactical support. And Holloway? I'll inform him personally. The Admiral's expression was unreadable. I suggest you get some rest, Phoenix. You're going to need it. He turned to leave. Sir? Maya's voice stopped him at the door. Why did you really come? You could have sent someone else to verify my identity. You could have handled this through channels. Crawford was quiet for a long moment. Then, without turning around, because I made you a promise 3 years ago. I told you that if you ever needed help, I would come. No matter what. He paused. I don't break promises. The door closed behind him. Maya stood alone in the interrogation room, surrounded by concrete walls and fluorescent light, and the ghost of every choice that had led her to this moment. 4 hours until the mission began. 70 hours until 3 Americans died. And somewhere on this base, a traitor was watching. The officer's mess had never felt smaller. Derek Holloway sat at his usual table, but nothing else was usual. The other officers kept their distance. The conversations around him had dropped to whispers, and every few seconds someone glanced in his direction with an expression he couldn't quite read. What? He finally snapped at Peters. What is everyone staring at? Peters shifted uncomfortably. There's a rumor going around. There's always a rumor going around. This one's different. Peters lowered his voice. They're saying Admiral Crawford came to the base personally, middle of the night, went straight to the holding facility. So the cleaning girl, the one who claimed to be a SEAL, they're saying he had her released. They're saying he knows her. Holloway's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. That's impossible. That's what I said. But Martinez saw it. Saw Crawford walking out of the facility with her, not in cuffs, walking beside him like, Peters hesitated, like an equal. Martinez is an idiot who sees conspiracy theories everywhere. Maybe, but there's more. Peters glanced around, then leaned closer. They're assembling a team, separate from the main rescue operation, Black Ops, no official records, and the word is she's leading it. The cup slipped. Coffee splashed across the table, but Holloway barely noticed. She's leading it. The cleaning girl is leading a military operation. I don't know if it's true. I'm just telling you what I heard. It can't be true. It doesn't make sense. She's nobody. She's nothing. She's Lieutenant Commander Holloway. The voice came from behind him. Holloway turned to find a young ensign standing at attention, face carefully blank. Admiral Crawford requests your presence in Briefing Room 7. Immediately. Holloway's stomach dropped. What for? I wasn't informed, sir. Only that it's urgent and your attendance is mandatory. But Peters and the other officers were staring now. Not with amusement anymore. With something closer to fear. Holloway stood straightened his uniform, tried to project the confidence that had carried him through his entire career. But his hands were shaking, and everyone at the table could see it. Briefing Room 7 was at the far end of the administrative wing, a secure facility usually reserved for operations too sensitive for normal channels. Holloway had never been inside, had never rated high enough to be invited. The guards at the door checked his credentials twice before letting him through. Inside the room was smaller than he expected. A central table with tactical displays, screens covering every wall, and 5 people already assembled, none of whom he recognized. Except one. Maya Sterling stood at the head of the table. She'd changed clothes, tactical gear now, black and functional, fitting her like a second skin. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her eyes were calm, focused, completely different from the woman he'd mocked in the holding cell. "Lieutenant Commander?" Her voice carried no warmth. "Take a seat." "I don't take orders from civilians." "I'm not a civilian, and you will take orders from me because Admiral Crawford has assigned you to my team." Then she gestured to an empty chair. "Sit down." Holloway looked around the room for support. Found none. The other team members watched him with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. An older man with silver hair and scarred hands, a woman in medical corps insignia, a young Asian American man who couldn't be older than 25. And behind them all, Admiral Crawford, silent and watching. "Admiral." Holloway straightened. "Sir, I have to protest. This woman is a fraud. She claimed to be a Navy SEAL, which is impossible. Her story is classified," Crawford interrupted. "And you will not speak of it outside this room. Not to your father, not to your friends, not to anyone. Is that understood?" "But, sir, is that understood?" The words hit like physical blows. Holloway had never heard Crawford use that tone, had never seen the iron beneath the diplomatic exterior. "Yes, sir," he managed. "Good. Now sit down and listen, because the next few hours are going to change everything you think you know about service sacrifice and what it really means to earn your place." Holloway sat. His legs felt weak, and he was grateful for the chair beneath him. Maya waited until he was settled. Then she turned to the tactical display and began. At 0200 hours 3 days ago, 3 American citizens were taken hostage by a terrorist cell operating in Yemen. Ryan Chen, son of Senator David Chen, Navy corpsman, Sarah Mills, civilian aid worker, and Marcus Webb, contractor for a private security firm. Images appeared on the screen. 3 faces, 3 lives hanging in the balance. Official intelligence puts them at a compound 60 kilometers from the coast. That intelligence is wrong. The compound is a decoy, a trap designed to eliminate any rescue team and ensure the hostages are never recovered. She tapped the display. A new image appeared. Satellite footage of a different location entirely. This is the real target. Soviet-era bunker system 40 kilometers east. 3 kilometers of underground tunnels, multiple defensive positions, estimated 40-plus hostiles. The hostages are being held in the lowest level in a containment area originally designed for biological weapons storage. How do you know this? The question came from the young man Tommy Chen Holloway realized. The senator's nephew. Because I was embedded with the cell for 8 months. Maya's voice was flat. Because I walked those tunnels, memorized the layout, identified every weakness. Because I planted tracking devices on every high-value target before my extraction. And those devices are still active. They activated 6 hours ago, which means the cell is getting ready to move. We have a narrow window, 67 hours, maybe less, before they either execute the hostages or transfer them to a location we'll never find. And the older man, Brennan Jackson, Brennan Holloway remembered from the file, leaned forward. Defensive strength, heavy, more than we'd like. But they're not expecting an assault from the east. All their defenses are oriented toward the decoy site. Maya's eyes were steady. We go in quiet. Small team. Disable communications, extract the hostages, exfil before they know we're there. And if it goes loud, then we improvise. A thin smile. We're good at improvising. The woman in medical insignia spoke up. Medical status of the hostages. Unknown. Ryan Chen was wounded during the initial capture. He'll need immediate treatment once we extract. The others appear stable, but we won't know for certain until we're on the ground. She looked around the room. At Brennan with his scarred hands and experienced eyes. At Elena Vasquez with her medical kit and steady nerves. At Tommy Chen with his personal stake and technical skills. At Holloway with his skepticism and fear. This is a volunteer mission. High risk, low probability of success. Anyone who wants to walk away can do so now, no questions asked. She paused. But if you stay, you follow my orders without hesitation. You trust the person next to you with your life, and you don't stop moving until every American is out of that bunker and on their way home. Silence. Brennan spoke first. I'm in. Same, said Elena. Tommy nodded. Whatever it takes. All eyes turned to Holloway. He could feel the weight of their stares, could feel Crawford watching from the back of the room, could feel his entire career balanced on the edge of a decision he wasn't prepared to make. The cleaning girl, the fraud, the impossible woman who shouldn't exist, but somehow did. She was asking him to trust her with his life. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. I need to understand something first. Ask. Bud S., the training you claim to complete. I've seen the numbers. I've seen the dropout rates. Men break, strong men, warriors. They break, and they ring the bell, and they go home. Holloway leaned forward. What makes you different? What made you survive when everyone said you couldn't? Maya was quiet for a moment. The room held its breath. Then she reached up and pulled down the collar of her shirt. Just an inch. Just enough to reveal a scar that ran from her collarbone to her shoulder white and raised and ugly against her skin. I got this on day 4 of Hell Week. Training accident. Instructors wanted to pull me out. I refused. Finished the evolution with blood running down my arm and hypothermia setting in. She let the collar fall back into place. I survived because I had nothing to go back to. No family, no home, no safety net. The teams were my only chance at something better. She met his eyes directly. You've had everything handed to you, Lieutenant Commander. Your name, your rank, your career. You've never had to fight for survival because survival was always guaranteed. Her voice softened just slightly. But out there in those tunnels, none of that matters. Your father's name won't stop a bullet. Your rank won't save you from an ambush. The only thing that will keep you alive is the person standing next to you. And you expect me to believe that person is you. I don't expect you to believe anything. I expect you to follow orders and stay out of my way. Maya turned back to the tactical display. We deploy in 3 hours. Wheels up at 0800. Any other questions? Holloway had 1,000 questions about her past, about her training, about how a 20-year-old girl could stand in a room full of experienced operators and command their respect. But he asked none of them. Because somewhere deep down in a place he didn't want to acknowledge, he was beginning to understand that everything he thought he knew was wrong. No questions, he said. I'm in. Maya nodded. Then let's get to work. The next 3 hours were a blur. Equipment checks, intelligence briefings, tactical planning, contingencies for contingencies. Every detail examined, questioned, refined. Tommy Chen worked the technical angle. mapping communication frequencies and identifying blind spots in the bunker's security system. Elena Vasquez organized the medical kit, preparing for every possible wound, every possible emergency. Brennan reviewed the extraction routes, calculating distances and timing with the precision of a man who'd done this 100 times before. And Holloway watched Maya move through the preparations with quiet efficiency. Watched her answer questions, solve problems, adapt plans on the fly. Watched the way the others deferred to her, not out of obligation, but out of genuine respect. She wasn't what he expected. None of this was what he expected. At 07:30, Admiral Crawford pulled him aside. "Having second thoughts." Holloway hesitated. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted." "She's not what I thought. The cleaning girl. Phoenix. Whatever her name is." He struggled to find the right words. "I've served with officers my whole career. Good ones. Bad ones. But I've never seen anyone command a room like she does. It's not rank. It's not authority. It's something else. It's earned." Crawford's voice was quiet. "Every ounce of respect she has, she earned through blood and pain and sacrifice. That's the difference between you and her, Holloway. She started with nothing and built everything. You started with everything and built nothing." The words stung. Holloway wanted to argue, to defend himself, to explain that he'd worked hard too, that his accomplishments were real. But he couldn't, because deep down he knew Crawford was right. "Why are you sending me?" he asked instead. "Really?" Crawford was silent for a long moment. "Then, because you're the best pilot on this base. Because I need someone who can fly anything anywhere under any conditions. And because I believe there's more to you than your father's shadow." He put a hand on Holloway's shoulder. "Prove me right. And if I can't, then at least you'll have tried." Crawford's eyes were sad. That's more than most people ever do. He walked away before Holloway could respond. At 07:55, the team assembled on the tarmac. Maya checked her weapon one final time, looked at each member of her team in turn. Brennan solid and dependable. Elena calm under pressure. Tommy driven by love for his cousin. Holloway uncertain, but present. "Whatever happens in the next 72 hours, she said, "we finish this together. No one gets left behind. No one gets forgotten. We bring our people home, or we don't come home at all." She turned toward the aircraft. "Move out." They boarded in silence. The engines spun up. The aircraft lifted into the pre-dawn darkness, and somewhere in Yemen, a clock continued to tick toward zero. The aircraft hit turbulence somewhere over the Red Sea, and Holloway's stomach lurched for the 10th time in 2 hours. He wasn't afraid of flying. He was a pilot, for God's sake. He'd flown through worse conditions than this without breaking a sweat. But sitting in the back of a transport plane, stripped of control, heading toward a mission that every rational part of his brain screamed was suicide, that was different. Maya sat across from him, eyes closed, breathing steady. She might have been asleep. She might have been meditating. She might have been running through tactical scenarios in her head. Holloway couldn't tell, and that bothered him more than he wanted to admit. "First combat drop." The question came from Brennan, who'd moved to sit beside him without making a sound. The older man's face was weathered-lined with years of operations Holloway would never know about, eyes that had seen things that would give most people nightmares for life. "I've done halo jumps in training," Holloway said. "Dozens of them." "Training isn't combat." Brennan's voice was matter-of-fact, not condescending. "Training doesn't shoot back." "I know that. Do you—" Brennan studied him. "You're sweating. Your hands haven't stopped shaking since we took off. Your breathing is shallow and you keep looking at Phoenix like you're waiting for her to tell you this is all a joke." Holloway said nothing. There was nothing to say. "She won't," Brennan continued. "Tell you it's a joke, I mean, because it's not. In about 4 hours, we're going to jump out of this aircraft into hostile territory. We're going to infiltrate a bunker system designed to be impenetrable. We're going to extract 3 hostages while fighting off 40-plus armed combatants. And statistically speaking, at least one of us probably won't make it home. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you understand what you signed up for." Brennan leaned back. "You can still back out. Ride along to the staging area, wait with the support team, fly the extraction bird when we call for pickup. No one would blame you." "She would." Brennan followed Holloway's gaze to Maya. "Maybe. Maybe not. Phoenix judges people by their choices, not their limitations. If you told her right now that you weren't ready for ground combat, she'd reassign you without a second thought. And think less of me. Does that matter?" Holloway was quiet for a long moment. The aircraft shuddered through another patch of turbulence. Somewhere behind them, Tommy Chen was running final checks on the communication equipment, muttering technical jargon under his breath. Elena Vasquez was organizing her medical kit for the 100th time, hand steady, mind focused. "Yes," Holloway finally admitted. "It matters. I don't know why, but it does." Brennan nodded slowly. "That's a start." "A start to what?" "To becoming someone worth respecting." The older man stood up. "Get some rest if you can. We've got a long night ahead." He walked away before Holloway could respond. Maya's eyes opened. She'd been listening the whole time. Holloway knew it, and she knew he knew it, but neither of them acknowledged it. Some things didn't need words. The transport flew on through the darkness, carrying 5 souls toward an impossible mission. 3 hours later, they reached the drop zone. The rear cargo door opened with a hydraulic whine, and the roar of wind filled the aircraft. Below them, nothing but blackness, no lights, no landmarks, just empty desert stretching to the horizon. Maya stood at the edge, checking her equipment one final time. Parachute secure, weapons accessible, night vision ready, communications active. 60 seconds to drop. The pilot's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Winds are higher than expected. You'll need to compensate on descent." "Copy that." Maya turned to her team. "Remember the plan. We land 2 clicks east of the bunker entrance. Rally point is the dried riverbed. If you get separated, make your way there. If you're not at rally in 30 minutes, we assume you're compromised and proceed without you." "Comforting," Holloway muttered. "It's realistic." Maya met his eyes. "This isn't training, Lieutenant Commander. Out here, sentiment gets people killed." Everyone clear, nods all around. "Good. Brennan, you're first. Then Elena, Tommy, Holloway. I'll bring up the rear." "Why you last?" Tommy asked. "Because if something goes wrong, I need to see it happen." Maya's voice was flat. "And because I don't leave my team behind. Not ever." The light above the door shifted from red to yellow. 30 seconds. Brennan moved to the edge. The wind tore at his jumpsuit, but he stood steady a rock against the chaos. He'd done this 100 times before. The fear was still there. It never fully went away, but it was manageable now. Familiar. 20 seconds. Elena stepped up beside him. Her hands weren't shaking. Her breathing was controlled. Whatever fear she felt, she'd locked it away in a box she wouldn't open until the mission was over. 10 seconds. Tommy joined the line. His face was pale, but his jaw was set. Somewhere in that bunker was his cousin, beaten and bleeding and waiting for rescue. He would jump into hell itself if that's what it took. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The light turned green. "Go, go, go!" Brennan threw himself into the void. Elena followed half a second later. Tommy hesitated for just a moment, one heartbeat of doubt, then he was gone too. Holloway stepped to the edge. The world below was infinite darkness. The wind screamed in his ears. Every instinct he had told him to step back, to stay in the aircraft, to let someone else be the hero. But Maya was watching. And for reasons he couldn't explain, that mattered more than his fear. He jumped. The free fall lasted forever, and no time at all. Wind tore at his body, spinning him, disorienting him, trying to scatter his thoughts like leaves in a storm. He forced himself to focus. Altimeter, heading, rate of descent. The numbers became his anchor, pulling him back from the edge of panic. At 30,000 feet, he stabilized. At 20,000, he checked his position. At 10,000, he deployed his chute and felt the brutal jerk as the canopy caught air. Below him, 4 other chutes bloomed in the darkness. The team was intact. The drop was successful. Then the radio crackled. "Phoenix to all units. We've got a problem." Holloway's blood went cold. "What kind of problem?" "The kind that shoots back. I'm seeing vehicle movement at our landing zone. At least 3 technicals mounted weapons. They're not supposed to be here." Brennan's voice cut in. "How did they know?" "I don't know. But we need to adjust. New landing zone 1 click south. It's rougher terrain, but it's clear." Maya paused. "Everyone copy." Confirmations came through. One by one, the team adjusted their descent, angling toward the new coordinates. Holloway's hands were sweating inside his gloves. This wasn't supposed to happen. The drop zone had been clear on the satellite imagery. The patrol routes had been mapped and memorized. Nothing should have been there, unless someone had told them exactly where to look. The ground came up fast. Holloway flared his chute at the last moment, hit the sand, rolling, and came up in a crouch with his weapon ready. The desert was silent around him. No vehicles, no voices, no gunfire. But the fear didn't fade. Because now he knew what Maya had suspected all along. They had a traitor. The rally point was a dried riverbed carved into the desert floor by waters that hadn't flowed in decades. Maya was the last to arrive, materializing out of the darkness like a ghost. She moved without sound, without wasted motion, every step precisely placed. Holloway had trained with Special Forces operators before. He'd seen what elite soldiers looked like in action. Maya was something else entirely. "Everyone intact?" she asked. "Minor scrape on my knee," Elena reported. "Nothing serious. Equipment, all accounted for." "Good." Maya crouched down, pulling a tablet from her pack. The screen glowed softly, displaying a real-time map of the area. "The patrol that was at our drop zone is moving south. They'll pass within half a click of our position in approximately 12 minutes. "Do we engage?" Brennan asked. "No. We let them pass and proceed to the bunker entrance as planned." She looked up. "But we need to address the obvious question. How did they know where we'd be landing?" Silence. "The drop coordinates were classified," Tommy said slowly. "Only our team and Admiral Crawford had access." "And Crawford's staff," Maya added. "Which brings me to something I didn't want to share until I was certain." She pulled up another screen. "Before we left, I planted a monitoring program in the base's communication system, a fail-safe in case my suspicions were correct." "You hacked military communications?" Holloway's voice was sharp. "That's treason. It's survival." Maya's eyes met his without flinching. "And it paid off. 30 minutes before we took off, someone sent an encrypted transmission from inside the base. The encryption is military grade, but the destination server is in Yemen. The implications hung in the air like poison. Someone on the base sold us out," Elena said quietly. "Someone with access to classified operations." Maya nodded. "Someone who knew our drop coordinates before we even boarded the aircraft." "Do you know who?" Brennan asked. Not yet. The encryption is too strong to crack in the field, but I know where the transmission originated. Maya paused. Admiral Crawford's office. The words hit like a physical blow. That's impossible. Holloway was on his feet. Crawford is the one who authorized this mission. He's the one who believed you when no one else did. Why would he— I didn't say it was Crawford. Maya's voice was calm. I said it came from his office. Someone with access to his systems. Someone he trusts. His aide, Tommy said suddenly. Commander Price. He's been with Crawford for 3 years. He has access to everything. Price. Maya turned the name over in her mind. What do you know about him? Not much, keeps to himself. Efficient. Crawford relies on him for scheduling communications intelligence briefings. Tommy frowned. My cousin mentioned him once. Said he seemed nervous lately, stressed about something. Nervous could mean anything, Elena pointed out. Or it could mean guilty. Maya checked her watch. We don't have time to investigate further. The patrol will be here in 8 minutes and we need to be gone. She stood up, her decision made. We proceed as planned. Infiltrate the bunker, extract the hostages' exfil to the extraction point. But we assume our communications are compromised. Radio silence unless absolutely necessary. Hand signals only. And when we get back, Brennan asked, assuming we get back, then we find out who sold us out, and we make them answer for it. Nobody argued. There was nothing to argue about. The mission was the mission, and everything else could wait. Maya led them out of the riverbed and into the darkness. Behind them, the distant rumble of engines grew closer, then faded as the patrol passed their former position. Someone had tried to kill them before they even touched the ground. That someone was going to regret it. The bunker entrance was exactly where Maya remembered it. A rusted metal door set into a hillside, half buried by sand and neglect. Soviet-era construction abandoned decades ago, forgotten by everyone except the people who'd found a new use for it. 2 guards stood outside, weapons slung casually, cigarette smoke curling in the cold night air. They weren't expecting trouble. Why would they? The real target, the decoy site, 60 kilometers away, would draw all the attention. This place was supposed to be invisible. Maya signaled Brennan. 2 fingers, point left, then right. Brennan nodded. He moved like smoke circling wide to approach from the guard's blind spot. Maya went the other direction, her footsteps silent on the packed sand. The guards never saw them coming. 2 soft sounds, 2 bodies crumpling, 2 threats eliminated in less than 3 seconds. Maya dragged her target into the shadows while Brennan did the same. Tommy moved up to the door, pulling a device from his pack, a portable hacking unit designed to defeat electronic locks. Standard Soviet cipher system, he murmured. Modified with modern components, but the base architecture is the same. His fingers danced across the keypad. Give me 30 seconds. Elena checked the perimeter. Holloway stood ready. Weapon-raised eyes scanning the darkness for movement. His hands had stopped shaking somewhere between the jump and now. Fear was still there, but it had transformed into something else. Focus. Clarity. The understanding that hesitation meant death. I'm in. Tommy stepped back as the door clicked open. Security feeds are looping. They won't know we're here until we want them to. Good work. Maya pulled the door wide enough to slip through. Brennan, take point. Standard clearing formation. Watch for tripwires, they like to booby-trap the upper levels. The team filed into the bunker one by one. The darkness inside was absolute, broken only by the green glow of night vision goggles. The air smelled of mold and rust, and something else. Something human and afraid. They were getting close. The first level was storage crates and barrels and forgotten equipment from an era that no longer existed. Maya led them through without stopping her memory, guiding her through corridors she'd walked 100 times before. Left at the junction. Right at the collapsed passage. Straight through the maintenance bay. The second level was barracks. Sleeping quarters for the guards, now mostly empty. A few snores drifted from behind closed doors, but no one stirred. The night shift was minimal. Most of the cell's fighters were above ground, watching the perimeter, watching the wrong approaches. The third level was command, communications equipment, planning rooms, the infrastructure of terrorism laid bare. And the fourth level, the lowest, the most secure, was where they kept the hostages. Maya stopped at the top of the final stairway, raised her fist. The team halted instantly. "I'm picking up voices," she whispered. "Multiple contacts below, at least 6, maybe more." "Can we go around?" Elena asked. "No, this is the only way down." Maya checked her weapon. "We'll need to clear them, fast and quiet, no alarms." "I can handle the security system," Tommy offered. "Cut the lights, give you 30 seconds of darkness before backup power kicks in." "Do it, on my signal." They descended the stairs in formation. Maya first, then Brennan, then the others. Each step brought them closer to the voices, closer to the guards, closer to the moment when everything would either work perfectly or fall apart completely. The stairway opened into a corridor. 6 guards visible clustered around a makeshift table, playing cards and drinking tea. Weapons within reach, but not in hand. Relaxed. Bored. Utterly unprepared for what was about to happen. Maya raised 3 fingers. 2. 1. Tommy killed the lights. Darkness. Absolute and sudden. Confused shouts in Arabic. The clatter of chairs falling over. Someone fumbling for a flashlight. Maya moved. The first guard went down before he could stand. The second died, reaching for his weapon. Brennan took the third and fourth in rapid succession, his suppressed rifle coughing twice. Elena dropped the fifth with a shot that passed through his skull before he could scream. The sixth guard got his gun up, got his finger on the trigger, got halfway through pulling it before Holloway put 2 rounds in his chest. Silence returned. 5 seconds. 6 targets. 0 alarms. The backup lights flickered on, casting everything in dim red emergency lighting. Maya was already moving, stepping over bodies, heading for the heavy steel door at the end of the corridor. "Tommy, get this open." "On it." The lock was more sophisticated than the ones above. Military-grade encryption biometric components. The kind of security that was supposed to take hours to defeat. Tommy defeated it in 47 seconds. The door swung open. And there they were. 3 figures huddled in the corner of a concrete cell. Dirty, bruised, terrified, but alive. Ryan Chen looked up first. His face was a mess of cuts and swelling, one eye nearly closed shut. But when he saw the American flags on their shoulders, something broke inside him. Relief. Hope. The realization that maybe, just maybe, the nightmare was ending. "Oh God," he breathed. "Oh, thank God." Sarah Mills started crying, silent tears streaming down her face as she clutched the arm of Marcus Webb, who was staring at them like he couldn't quite believe they were real. "U.S. military," Maya said, her voice calm and steady. "We're here to take you home. Can you walk? Ryan can't." Sarah's voice was hoarse from disuse. "His leg, they broke it. He can't put weight on it." Elena was already moving, pulling medical supplies from her pack. "I've got him. Brennan helped me stabilize the leg for transport." "What about guards?" Webb asked. "There are dozens of them. They come every few hours to..." He stopped. Couldn't finish. The guards are handled. Maya met his eyes. We're getting you out, all of you, but we need to move fast. Tommy was working on Ryan's restraints. Elena was wrapping his leg. Brennan was helping Webb and Mills to their feet. And Holloway was watching Maya, watching her check the corridor, watching her calculate distances and timing, watching her carry the weight of 5 lives on her shoulders without bending. Phoenix, Brennan's voice was tense. We've got a problem. What kind? The radio. It just activated. Someone's broadcasting from inside the bunker. Maya's blood went cold. What frequency? Brennan checked the display. Same one as the transmission from the base. Same encryption. The traitor. Not just at the base. Here, inside the bunker. Someone had followed them, or someone had been waiting. Can you trace it? Already did. Brennan looked up. It's coming from the level above us. The command center. Maya made a decision in half a heartbeat. Brennan, Elena, get the hostages to the extraction point. Tommy, go with them. Holloway. She paused. You're with me. Wait, Brennan stepped forward. You can't go alone. If there's a hostile in the command center, then I'll handle them. The hostages are the priority. Get them out. That's an order. Maya, that's an order, Jackson? Brennan held her gaze for a long moment. They'd known each other for years. He'd trained her, watched her grow from a traumatized teenager into the deadliest operator he'd ever worked with. He knew better than to argue when she used that voice. Be careful, he said finally. Always. She turned and headed back up the stairs. Holloway followed his heart, pounding his weapon ready. They were walking into the unknown, and somewhere above them, a traitor was waiting. The command center was dark when they reached it. Maya paused outside the door, listening. The radio transmission had stopped, but that didn't mean the threat was gone. It could mean the message was sent. It could mean reinforcements were already on their way. It could mean they were walking into a trap. She signaled Holloway. Cover right. She'd take left. He nodded. Maya kicked the door open. The room beyond was filled with communications equipment, radios, computers, satellite uplinks. A dozen screens showing camera feeds from throughout the bunker. Maps pinned to the walls. Intelligence documents scattered across every surface. And in the center of it all, a figure in an American military uniform. Commander Nathaniel Price turned slowly to face them. His hands were raised empty, his expression calm. Too calm for a man caught in the act of betrayal. Phoenix, he almost smiled. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. Maya's weapon didn't waver. On your knees. Hands behind your head. Or what, you'll shoot me? Price laughed softly. Go ahead. It won't change anything. The message is sent. They know you're here. They know the extraction route. In about 15 minutes, this whole area is going to be swarming with fighters. Why? Holloway's voice cracked. Why would you do this? You're American. These are your people. My people. Something dark flickered in Price's eyes. My people left me to rot in a Syrian prison for 18 months while they pretended I didn't exist. My people told my wife I was dead and let her move on without me. My people destroyed everything I cared about and then expected me to smile and say thank you when they finally decided I was worth rescuing. So you sold us out for revenge. I sold you out because they paid me. Because after everything I sacrificed, this country owed me more than a handshake and a classified file. Price's smile widened. And because watching Crawford's career burn is going to be the highlight of my miserable life. Maya took a step forward. Her finger was tight on the trigger. Every instinct she had screamed at her to pull it to end this man who had betrayed everything she believed in. but she didn't. The message you sent. What did it say? Everything. Your team composition. Your extraction coordinates. The helicopter's arrival time. Price shrugged. They'll be waiting for you. All of you. And there's nothing you can do about it. How long do we have? Maybe 20 minutes, maybe less. Depends on how motivated they are. He laughed again. You should run Phoenix. Take your team and run as fast as you can. It won't matter. They'll catch you eventually. And when they do... Maya moved. 1 second she was 5 feet away. The next she was behind him, her arm locked around his throat, her weapon pressed against his skull. You're going to help us, she whispered in his ear. You're going to use that radio to send another message. You're going to tell them we went west instead of east. You're going to buy us the time we need to get those hostages out. And if I refuse, then I leave you here, alive, and I make sure your terrorist friends know exactly who you are and what you did. Maya's voice was ice. They don't like traitors any more than we do. I'm sure they'll find creative ways to express their disappointment. Price went still. For the first time since they'd entered, real fear showed in his eyes. You wouldn't. Try me. Silence stretched between them. The screens flickered. The clock ticked. And somewhere in the distance, the sound of engines began to grow. Fine. Price's voice was hoarse. I'll send the message. Maya released him, pushed him toward the radio, watched with cold eyes as he keyed the frequency and began to speak in rapid Arabic. When he was done, she hit him once. Hard. He dropped like a stone, unconscious before he hit the floor. Was any of that true? Holloway asked. About being a prisoner, about his wife. I don't know. I don't care. Maya was already heading for the door. Move. We've got 15 minutes to reach extraction. They ran. Maya's boots pounded against concrete as she raced through the bunker corridors. Behind her, Holloway struggled to keep up. His lungs burned, his legs screamed. Every step felt like it might be his last. But Maya wasn't slowing down, and he'd be damned if he fell behind now. Brennan status report. Maya's voice was barely winded despite the pace. The radio crackled. We're at the secondary exit. Hostages are mobile, but Ryan's leg is worse than we thought. Elena's doing what she can. How long to extraction point? 8 minutes if we push. 12 if Ryan can't handle the pace. You've got 8. Don't stop for anything. Copy that. What about you? We're on our way. Had to deal with a complication. The traitor handled. Maya rounded a corner, nearly collided with a guard who was just as surprised to see her. She didn't hesitate. 2 shots. He dropped. She kept running. Move fast, Jackson. They know we're here. The radio went silent. Somewhere above them, the sound of alarms began to wail. Price's message? Holloway gasped. Did it work? We'll find out in about 7 minutes. Maya hit the stairs, taking them 3 at a time. Either they believed the misdirect or were running straight into an ambush. That's not exactly reassuring. It's not supposed to be. She burst through the exit door into the night air. The cold hit her like a wall, but she didn't slow. It's supposed to keep you moving. The desert stretched before them, vast and empty, and utterly exposed. Somewhere to the east, the extraction helicopter would be waiting. Somewhere to the west, Price's terrorist friends were converging on a location that didn't exist. Somewhere in between 5 Americans and 3 hostages were fighting for their lives. Maya ran, Holloway ran, and the clock kept ticking. Brennan heard the gunfire before he saw the muzzle flashes. Contact left. He shoved Sarah Mills behind a rock formation, returning fire with controlled bursts. Elena, get the hostages down. Already on it. Elena was half dragging Ryan Chen, his arm over her shoulders. his face contorted in agony. Every step on his broken leg sent waves of pain through his body. But he didn't cry out. Couldn't cry out. Any sound could give away their position. Tommy flanked right, laying down suppressing fire. Where did they come from? Price's message was supposed to send them west. Either it didn't work, or there were more of them than we thought. Brennan dropped 2 hostiles with precise shots, then ducked as return fire chewed the rock inches from his head. We need to move, now. Ryan can't. He doesn't have a choice. Brennan grabbed Marcus Webb by the collar. You, help Elena with Chen. Mills, stay behind me. We're going to run for that ridgeline. That's 200 meters of open ground. Webb's voice cracked. Then I suggest you run fast. More gunfire erupted from their left. Tommy took a round to his vest, the impact spinning him sideways, knocking the wind out of him. He hit the ground hard, gasping. Tommy, Elena screamed. I'm okay. He struggled to his knees, one hand pressed against his chest. Vest caught it. Just give me a second. They didn't have a second. 3 hostiles were advancing on their position, moving in coordinated formation, professional and deadly. Brennan made a decision. Go. All of you. Run for the ridge. What about you? I'll hold them here. Buy you time. Jackson. That's an order, Elena. His voice was steel. Get those hostages to extraction. Don't look back. Don't stop, no matter what you hear. Elena's eyes met his. 20 years of friendship. Countless missions. Moments that couldn't be put into words. All of it passed between them in a single heartbeat. You better not die, she said. Wouldn't dream of it. She turned, grabbed Ryan, started running. Brennan stood his ground, checked his magazine. 16 rounds, 3 targets advancing more behind them. Not great odds, but he'd faced worse. The first hostile came around the rock. Brennan put 2 rounds in his chest before he could raise his weapon. The second tried to flank. Brennan anticipated, pivoted, dropped him with a headshot. The third got a shot off. The round grazed Brennan's shoulder, drawing blood, sending fire through his nervous system. He ignored it. Returned fire. The hostile fell. But there were more coming. He could hear them, could feel them closing in like wolves on wounded prey. Come on then, he muttered, reloading. Let's see what you've got. Maya heard the gunfire and changed course. That's not the extraction point. Holloway was bent over hands on knees, struggling to breathe. That's my team. Maya checked her weapon. 12 rounds in the magazine, 2 spare mags on her vest. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Stay here. What? No. I'm coming with you. You'll slow me down. I don't care. Holloway straightened, forcing his exhausted body to cooperate. You said no one gets left behind. That includes you. Maya studied him. The arrogant officer from the conference room was gone. The man standing before her now was something else. Something that had been forged in the last few hours through fear and fire and the dawning realization that everything he thought he knew was wrong. Can you shoot? She asked. Top marks in marksmanship training. Training isn't combat. Then I guess I'll learn fast. Despite everything, Maya almost smiled. Stay on my 6. Don't fire unless you have a clear shot. And if I tell you to run, I run. Got it. They moved. The terrain was brutal, loose sand that shifted underfoot rocks that appeared from nowhere, a darkness that swallowed everything beyond arm's reach. Maya navigated it like she'd been born here, her movements fluid and certain. Holloway stumbled twice, but kept going. His muscles screamed, his lungs burned. But somewhere ahead, people were dying, and he wasn't going to let that happen if he could do anything to stop it. The gunfire grew louder, closer. There! Maya dropped to a crouch, pointing. Brennan's pinned down, at least 6 hostiles advancing on his position. What's the play? We hit them from behind, fast and hard. Create enough chaos for Brennan to break contact. And if there are more than 6, then we improvise. She didn't wait for his response. Didn't give him time to second guess. She simply rose and moved forward, a shadow among shadows, death walking on silent feet. Holloway followed. The first hostile never saw them coming. Maya was on him before he could turn her knife, sliding between his ribs with surgical precision. He collapsed without a sound. The second heard something, maybe a footstep, maybe just instinct, and started to spin. Holloway shot him. Center mass, 2 rounds. The man dropped. Good shot. Maya's voice carried no surprise, just acknowledgement. They pressed forward. 2 more hostiles fell before the others realized they were under attack from behind. Confusion rippled through their ranks. Shouted orders in Arabic, muzzle flashes pointing in the wrong direction. Brennan saw the opening and took it. He rose from cover, emptying his magazine into the disoriented enemy. 3 more dropped. The survivors broke and ran, disappearing into the darkness. Phoenix! Brennan's voice was heavy with relief. About time you showed up. Got delayed. Maya was already moving toward him, checking his wounds. Shoulder, flesh wound. I've had worse shaving. Liar. But she was smiling now. Barely. Just enough to show she was glad he was alive. Where's the rest of the team? Heading for extraction. Elena's got the hostages. Tommy took a round to the vest, but he's mobile. Brennan reloaded with practiced efficiency. We need to catch up. Then let's go. They ran together, the 3 of them, through darkness and danger, toward a helicopter that might or might not be waiting. Elena reached the extraction point with 45 seconds to spare. The helicopter was there. Rotors spinning. Crew chief beckoning frantically from the open door. The most beautiful sight she'd ever seen in her life. Go, go, go! She pushed the hostages toward the aircraft. Get them on board. Tommy was already helping Ryan Chen into the bird, careful of his shattered leg. Marcus Webb and Sarah Mills scrambled in after collapsing onto the deck, too exhausted to care about dignity. Where's the rest of your team? The crew chief shouted over the rotor wash. Coming, they're coming. We can't wait long. Radar shows vehicles approaching from the west. Just give them 2 minutes. We might not have 2 minutes. Elena turned to scan the darkness. Nothing. Just empty desert and the distant sound of engines growing louder. Where were they? They should be here by now. They should muzzle flashes, half a kilometer out. The crack of gunfire carried across the sand. There, Tommy pointed. I see them. 3 figures running, 2 supporting a third. The one in the middle was limping badly, but the other 2 weren't slowing down, weren't leaving him behind. Behind them, a wave of hostiles. Too many to count. Firing as they advanced. Cover fire! Elena screamed. Give them cover fire! The crew chief didn't hesitate. He swung the door-mounted machine gun around and opened up, laying down a wall of lead between the team and their pursuers. Tracers lit the night like angry fireflies. The hostiles faltered. Some dropped. Others dove for cover. But they didn't stop coming. Maya reached the helicopter first, practically throwing Brennan toward the open door. Get him in. What about you? I'm right behind you. She turned, raised her weapon, fired at the nearest pursuer. Holloway, move! Holloway ran the last 20 meters on pure adrenaline. His legs had stopped working properly 5 minutes ago. Only his will was keeping him upright. He hit the helicopter's deck and rolled, gasping, every muscle in his body screaming. Phoenix, let's go! Maya fired again. And again. Dropping targets with mechanical precision. Buying seconds that felt like hours. A round caught her in the vest. The impact drove her backward, stole her breath, sent stars exploding across her vision. She stumbled but didn't fall. Couldn't fall. Not yet, not until everyone was safe. Maya, Elena's voice was raw with fear. I'm fine. She was moving again, backing toward the helicopter, still firing. Get us in the air. Another round. This one found the gap between her vest panels, tearing through flesh and muscle. She felt the heat of it, the wrongness. Felt blood begin to flow down her side. Still, she kept moving. The helicopter's engines roared. The aircraft began to lift. Hands reached out Brennan's hands. Holloway's hands grabbing her jacket, hauling her aboard as the ground fell away beneath them. Rounds pinged off the aircraft's hull. The crew chief returned fire with everything he had. The pilot banked hard, putting distance between them and the hostiles below. We're clear, the pilot shouted. We're clear. Elena was already at Maya's side, tearing open her medical kit. Let me see. Let me see the wound. It's nothing. You're bleeding everywhere. That's not nothing. Elena's hands were steady despite the chaos, despite the fear, despite everything. She'd treated wounds under fire before. This was what she was trained for. Hold still. Maya let her work. For a moment, just a moment, she let herself relax. Let herself feel the pain she'd been ignoring. Let herself acknowledge how close they'd come to dying. They'd made it. Against all odds, against a traitor in their ranks, against an enemy that had known they were coming, they'd made it. The hostages, she asked. All three alive and stable. Elena pressed gauze against the wound. Ryan's going to need surgery, but he'll make it. They'll all make it. Good. Maya closed her eyes. That's good. Stay awake. Elena's voice was sharp. Don't you dare pass out on me. I'm not passing out. I'm resting my eyes. Same thing. Stay with me, Maya. Stay with me. The helicopter flew on through the darkness. Below them, the desert faded into nothing. Ahead, somewhere beyond the horizon, safety waited. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. The flight back took 3 hours. 3 hours of Elena monitoring Maya's vital signs. 3 hours of Tommy checking and rechecking the hostage's condition. 3 hours of Brennan staring out the window, processing everything that had happened. 3 hours of Holloway sitting in silence, replaying every moment, every choice, every assumption he'd made that had turned out to be wrong. The cleaning girl. He'd called her a fraud. A fake. A mentally disturbed wannabe who didn't deserve to breathe the same air as real operators. And she'd just taken a bullet saving his life. You're thinking too loud. Maya's voice was weak, but there was humor in it. She'd refused. Morphine insisted on staying alert despite the pain. Elena had done what she could, but the wound needed proper surgery, needed a hospital, needed things they didn't have at 30,000 feet. I'm thinking about everything, Holloway admitted. About how wrong I was. About all the things I said. You were an ass. I know. A privileged, arrogant ass who'd never had to work for anything in his life. I know that too. Good. Maya shifted, wincing. Then we don't need to talk about it anymore. How can you just let it go after everything I did? Because holding grudges takes energy I don't have. Her eyes found his in the dim light of the cargo hold. And because you showed up when it mattered. You followed me into that bunker. You watched my back. You didn't run when things got bad. I wanted to. Everyone wants to. The people who matter are the ones who stay anyway. Holloway was quiet for a moment. My father, Admiral Holloway, he's never going to believe any of this. He'll say I was manipulated, that you brainwashed me somehow. Probably. It's going to destroy my career. Probably. I don't care. The words surprised him as much as they surprised her. I thought I did. I thought my career was everything, but after tonight, he shook his head. I'd rather be someone worth respecting than someone with a title I didn't earn. Maya studied him. Something shifted in her expression. Not warmth exactly, but something close to it. Recognition, maybe. The acknowledgement that people could change, could grow, could become more than the worst versions of themselves. That's a good start, she said finally. A start. You've got a lot of work ahead of you, Lieutenant Commander. A lot of assumptions to unlearn. A lot of privilege to reckon with. She almost smiled. But at least you know you need to do the work. That's more than most people ever figure out. The helicopter began its descent. Through the window, the lights of an American military base came into view. Ambulances waiting on the tarmac. Medical teams standing by. Home. They were finally home. Admiral Crawford met them on the runway. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 12 hours. Lines on his face that hadn't been there before. A heaviness in his shoulders that spoke of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. But when he saw Maya being carried off the helicopter, when he saw the hostages being rushed toward the ambulances, when he saw his team, his impossible, miraculous team returning against all odds, something broke through the exhaustion. Pride. You did it. His voice was barely a whisper. You actually did it. We got lucky. Maya tried to stand on her own, Swade accepted Brennan's support grudgingly. Price sold us out. We would have walked into an ambush if— I know, we found his transmission logs. He's been feeding them information for months. Crawford's jaw tightened. He's already in custody. He'll face court-martial, treason charges, everything we can throw at him. And the official rescue team, recalled before they reached the decoy site. Your intel saved their lives too. Crawford stepped closer. You saved a lot of lives tonight, Phoenix. Senator Chen's son, 3 innocent civilians, and a dozen operators who would have died at that decoy location. I just did my job. No. Crawford shook his head. You did what no one else could, what no one else would have been allowed to try. He paused. I owe you an apology. For what? For letting them bury you, for losing track of you when the program was shut down, for not fighting harder to keep you in the field where you belonged. Maya was quiet for a long moment. The ambulance lights washed over her face, red and white and pulsing. Somewhere behind them, Ryan Chen was being loaded onto a stretcher, his cousin Tommy walking beside him holding his hand. You came when it mattered, she said finally. That's what counts. Is it enough? It has to be. She met his eyes. Because we can't change the past. We can only make better choices in the future. Crawford nodded slowly. The brass wants to give you a medal. Full recognition. Put your name in the papers. No. I told them you'd say that. Good. They're not going to like it. They don't have to like it. They just have to accept it. Maya straightened, pushing through the pain. I'm more effective as a ghost admiral, always have been. The moment I become official, I become limited, constrained by politics and procedures and all the things that get in the way of actually saving lives. So, what do you want? I want to go back to work. Different cover this time, the cleaning girl thing is blown, but somewhere quiet, somewhere I can watch and wait and be ready when the next crisis happens. And it will happen. It always does. She started walking toward the ambulance, Brennan still supporting her. Then she stopped, turned back. There is one thing you can do for me. Name it. Holloway, he surprised me tonight. Don't let his father destroy him for it. Crawford glanced at the lieutenant commander who was standing apart from the group watching the reunion with an expression that was impossible to read. I'll do what I can. Thank you, Admiral. She turned away, walked toward the waiting medical team, let herself finally accept that the mission was over. Behind her, the sun was beginning to rise over the horizon. A new day was dawning. The hospital room was quiet. Maya lay in the bed, monitors beeping softly, IV drip feeding fluids into her veins. The surgery had gone well. The bullet removed the damage, repaired the prognosis, optimistic. She'd be back on her feet in a few weeks, back in the field in a few months, back to being no one and nothing just the way she liked it. A knock on the door. "Come in." Holloway entered, looking uncomfortable in the sterile environment. He was still in his tactical gear, still wearing the exhaustion of the last 24 hours on his face. "I'm being reassigned," he said without preamble. "My father pulled strings. He wants me as far from this mess as possible." "Where?" "Alaska. Supply depot. The military equivalent of exile." He almost laughed. "Funny. Brennan threatened me with exactly that before we jumped." "What are you going to do?" "Accept it." Holloway moved closer. "I used to think assignment to Alaska would be the end of my career. Now," he shrugged, "now I think it might be the beginning of something better." "That's very philosophical of you." "I had a good teacher." Maya was quiet for a moment. Then, "You did good out there, Holloway. At the bunker. When Price had me pinned. When we were running for extraction. You didn't freeze. You didn't quit." "I wanted to." "But you didn't. That's what matters." She met his eyes. "You're not the man you were 3 days ago. Don't let anyone, including your father, convince you otherwise." "I won't." He straightened. "I should go. They want me on a transport in an hour." "Take care of yourself, Lieutenant Commander." "You too, Phoenix." He paused at the door. "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry. For everything I said. Everything I assumed. I was wrong, and I hope someday I can prove I've learned from it." "You already have." He nodded once. Then he was gone. Maya closed her eyes. Let the quiet wash over her. Let herself rest for the first time in what felt like years. Tomorrow the debriefings would start. The questions. The paperwork. All the tedious aftermath of saving lives. But for now, in this moment, there was only peace. She'd brought her people home. She'd honored the dead by refusing to add to their number. She'd proven that ghosts could bleed, could cry, could feel the weight of impossible choices, but they never ever stopped moving forward. And somewhere out there, someone else was waiting. Someone who needed a ghost to walk through walls and bring them home. She'd find them. She always did. 6 weeks passed like water through fingers. Maya spent the first 2 in the hospital fighting against the medical staff who insisted she needed more rest, more recovery time, more of everything she didn't have patience for. The bullet had done damage, but she'd survived worse. Her body would heal. It always did. Her mind was another matter. The nightmares came every night. Price's face in the command center. The muzzle flashes in the darkness. The feeling of the bullet tearing through her flesh. She'd wake up gasping, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there, scanning shadows for threats that existed only in her memory. PTSD, the base psychiatrist called it. A normal response to abnormal circumstances. He recommended therapy medication, time away from operational work. Maya nodded politely, ignored every word, and started physical therapy 2 days ahead of schedule. By week 3, she was walking without assistance. By week 4, she was running. By week 5, she was back in the gym pushing her body to its limits, rebuilding the strength that the injury had stolen. And by week 6, she was ready. Admiral Crawford found her in the base gym at 0500, working the heavy bag with a ferocity that made the chains groan. "You're supposed to be taking it easy." "I am taking it easy." Maya landed a combination that would have dropped a man twice her size. "This is me at half speed. The doctors..." The doctors don't understand what I need. She stopped, turned to face him. Sweat dripped down her face, but her breathing was controlled steady. I need to work. I need a mission. I need something to focus on besides the inside of my own head. Crawford studied her for a long moment. The young woman in front of him was different from the one he'd recruited 3 years ago. Harder, sharper, forged in fire that would have destroyed anyone else. Commander Price's court-martial starts next week, he said finally. The prosecution wants you to testify. No. Maya, I said no. Her voice was flat. If I testify, my identity becomes public record. Everything I've built, everything I've sacrificed to stay invisible, gone. Also, some lawyers can feel good about putting a traitor behind bars. He sold out American lives. He nearly got you killed. And he'll pay for that. But not with my exposure. Maya grabbed a towel, wiped her face. Find another way. Use the transmission logs. Use the intelligence we recovered from the bunker. Build a case that doesn't require a ghost to stand in a courtroom. It won't be as strong. It'll be strong enough. And I'll still be operational when it's over. She met his eyes. That's what matters, Admiral. Not revenge. Not justice. Effectiveness. The ability to do this again when the next crisis comes. Crawford sighed. He'd expected this. Had known on some level that Maya would refuse anything that compromised her cover. It was one of the things that made her invaluable, and one of the things that made her impossible. There's something else, he said. Something I need to tell you. What? Senator Chen wants to meet you. In person. He wants to thank the woman who saved his son's life. Maya's jaw tightened. No. He's not taking no for an answer. Then he'll have to learn. Maya. Crawford's voice softened. This isn't an order. It's a request. From a father who almost lost everything. He doesn't want to expose you. He doesn't want press conferences or medal ceremonies. He just wants 5 minutes to look you in the eye and say thank you. She was quiet for a long moment. The gym was empty around them, silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of reveille being played somewhere on base. 5 minutes, she said finally. No recordings, no photographs, no one else in the room. I'll arrange it. And after that, I disappear. New cover, new assignment. Somewhere no one will think to look for me. Already working on it. Crawford paused. There's a position opening up at a naval training facility. Civilian contractor maintenance and facilities. Low profile, high access. Where? Coronado. Maya's heart stopped. Coronado. Naval Base Coronado. Home of the Navy SEALs. The place where everything had started. The place she'd sworn she'd never go back to. You want me to return to where I trained? I want you somewhere you can make a difference. The next generation of operators is being built at Coronado. They need someone watching over them, someone who understands what they're going through. I'm not a teacher. No, you're a guardian. Crawford's voice was gentle. You've spent your whole life fighting in the shadows. Maybe it's time to help others learn how to do the same. Maya said nothing. Her mind was racing, processing, weighing options she hadn't considered. Coronado. The beach where she'd nearly drowned during Hell Week. The pool where she'd proven she could survive anything they threw at her. The place that had broken her down and rebuilt her into something stronger. Could she go back? Could she watch young recruits struggle through the same training that had almost killed her, knowing that most of them would fail? Could she not? I'll think about it, she said. That's all I ask. Crawford turned to leave. Admiral, Maya's voice stopped him at the door. Ryan Chen, the senator's son. How is he? Recovering. They saved the leg, but he'll walk with a limp for the rest of his life. Crawford paused. He's asking about you. Wants to know who the woman was who carried him out of that bunker. What did you tell him? That she was a ghost, and that ghosts don't leave forwarding addresses. Despite everything, Maya almost smiled. Good answer. The meeting with Senator Chen happened 3 days later. Maya arrived in civilian clothes, no identification, no name tag. She'd insisted on choosing the location herself, a small conference room in a nondescript government building swept for bugs monitored by no one except Brennan, standing guard outside the door. The senator was already waiting when she entered. David Chen was smaller than he appeared on television. Older too, with gray threading through his dark hair and lines carved deep around his eyes. He rose when she walked in, and Maya saw his hands were shaking. Miss Sterling. His voice cracked on her name. I don't know where to begin. You don't have to begin anywhere, Senator. I was just doing my job. Your job. Chen shook his head. My son was beaten, starved, left for dead in a hole in the ground. And you, a woman I'd never heard of whose name doesn't appear in any official record, you brought him home. His eyes were wet. That's not just a job. That's a miracle. Maya shifted uncomfortably. She'd never been good at this part. The gratitude, the emotion, the messy human aftermath of violence. How is Ryan? She asked, deflecting. He's alive. That's what matters. Chen took a breath. He told me what happened in that bunker. How you found them. How you carried him when he couldn't walk. How you held off the enemy so everyone else could escape. I had a team. He told me about your team too, and he told me about the moment he looked up and saw you standing in that doorway, and he just knew that everything was going to be okay. Chen stepped closer. He said you told him you were going to take him home. And you did. Against impossible odds you did. Senator. Please. Chen held up his hand. Let me finish. I've spent 30 years in politics. I've given speeches to thousands of people. I've negotiated treaties and passed legislation and done all the things powerful people do to feel important. His voice dropped. But I couldn't save my own son. I couldn't protect him when he needed me most. That wasn't your fault. Maybe not. But it was my failure nonetheless. Chen reached into his jacket, pulled out a small box. I can't give you a medal. I can't put your name in the papers. I can't do any of the things I would normally do to honor someone who saved everything I care about. But I can give you this. He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Simple gold band worn smooth with age. Nothing fancy. Nothing expensive. This belonged to my grandfather, Chen said quietly. He wore it through the Korean War. Brought it home when everyone said he wouldn't survive. He gave it to my father, who gave it to me. It's supposed to go to Ryan someday. He held it out. I want you to have it. I can't accept that. You can. And you will. Chen pressed the box into her hands. It's not payment. It's not a reward. It's just a piece of my family. A reminder that somewhere in the world there's a father and a son who owe their lives to you. Maya looked at the ring. Such a small thing. Such an enormous weight. I don't need reminders, Senator. Then consider it a thank you, from a man who ran out of words to express what he's feeling. Chen's voice broke. You gave me my son back. You gave my wife her child. You gave Ryan his future. I will never, never be able to repay that. You don't have to repay anything. I know. That's what makes it so hard. Chen stepped back. I won't take any more of your time. I know you have places to be, people to save. But before you go, I need to ask you one question. What? Why? Why do you do this? You could have any life you wanted. You could be rich, famous, comfortable. Instead, you choose to live in the shadows, risking your life for people you've never met. Chen's eyes searched her face. Why? Maya was quiet for a long moment. The question echoed in the empty room, demanding an answer she'd never fully articulated, not even to herself. Because someone has to, she said finally. Because there are people out there who need help, and the official channels can't reach them, and the politics are too complicated, and the rules get in the way. Someone has to step outside those rules. Someone has to be willing to do the impossible. And that someone is you. That someone is whoever shows up. Maya met his eyes. I just happen to be good at showing up. Chen nodded slowly. There was understanding in his gaze now. Not complete, he was a politician, not a soldier, but enough. Thank you, Miss Sterling, for everything. Take care of your son, Senator. He's going to need time to heal. Not just his body, his mind. The things he saw, the things he went through, those don't just disappear. I know. We've already arranged for therapy. The best specialists in the country. Good. And Senator. Maya paused at the door. If you ever need someone who doesn't exist to handle a problem that can't be solved through official channels, you have my number. I thought ghosts didn't leave forwarding addresses. We don't, but we always answer when the right people call. She was gone before he could respond. 2 months later, Naval Base Coronado. Maya pushed her maintenance cart through the training facility. Her cleaning uniform 2 sizes too big, her face unremarkable, her presence invisible to everyone around her. It felt like coming home. Not comfortable. Not easy. But familiar in a way that settled something deep in her chest. She'd walked these corridors as a recruit, terrified and determined in equal measure. She'd dragged herself across these floors after evolutions that should have broken her. She'd proven in this very building that a foster kid with nothing but willpower could become something extraordinary. Now she was back. Different role, same mission. Watch, wait, protect. The new class of BUDS candidates had started 3 weeks ago. 150 hopefuls, each one convinced they had what it took to earn the trident. By the end of Hell Week, that number would be cut in half. By graduation, maybe 30 would remain. Maya knew the statistics, had lived them, had watched friends ring the bell and walk away, their dreams shattered by cold water and physical exhaustion. But she also knew something else, something the statistics couldn't capture. The ones who made it, the ones who pushed through when everything told them to quit, they became something more than human. Not stronger, exactly. Not faster. But harder. More resilient. Forged in suffering until nothing could break them. She'd been one of them once. Now she watched over the next generation. Hell Week started on a Sunday. Maya was there invisible in the shadows when the instructors descended on the barracks at 0200. She watched the chaos unfold, the shouting, the confusion, the desperate scramble of young bodies trying to process what was happening. She watched them run into the surf, watched them lock arms and brace against the waves, watched the cold begin to seep into their bones. She watched them break. One by one, over the next 5 days, candidates rang the bell. Some quit after hours. Some lasted days. Some made it all the way to Thursday before their bodies simply gave out. And through it all, Maya watched. Silent. Patient. Waiting. On Friday, day 5, the last day she saw her, a young woman, 22 years old, the only female candidate left in a class that had started with 6. She was in the surf, hypothermic, shaking so hard, Her teeth were cracking against each other. The instructors were in her face, screaming, demanding that she quit, demanding that she ring the bell and end the pain. She was at the edge. Maya could see it. The moment when the body's survival instincts override the mind's determination. The moment when quitting stops being a choice and becomes an inevitability. The young woman looked up. Their eyes met across the distance. And Maya did something she hadn't planned. Something that broke every rule she'd set for herself about staying invisible, staying separate, staying uninvolved. She nodded. Just once, just the slightest movement of her head. Keep going. You've got this. Something shifted in the young woman's eyes. The desperation receded. The determination returned. She stood straighter, stopped shaking, looked the instructor dead in the face. I'm not quitting. The instructor studied her for a long moment. Then grudgingly he nodded. Get back in formation. The young woman returned to her place. The evolution continued, and Maya turned away before anyone could notice her watching. Who is that? The question came from a young instructor new to the training cadre, watching Maya walk away into the morning fog. The senior instructor, Master Chief Daniels, 25 years with the teams, was quiet for a moment. Nobody, he said finally. Just a maintenance worker. I've seen her around before, always watching the candidates, always in the shadows. Some people like to watch. It's weird. Maybe. Daniels turned back to the evolution. Or maybe she's exactly what she appears to be. Which is what? Someone who understands what these kids are going through. Someone who's been where they are, felt what they feel. He paused. Someone who knows that sometimes a single look from the right person can make the difference between quitting and continuing. That sounds like more than a maintenance worker. The best operators are the ones whose names will never be known, whose files will never be read, whose sacrifices live only in the memories of those who served beside them. Daniels watched Maya disappear into the fog. Some heroes get parades. The best ones get forgotten. And they wouldn't want it any other way. I don't understand. You're not supposed to, not yet. Daniels turned back to his trainees. Now get back to work. These candidates aren't going to break themselves. 3 more months passed. Maya settled into her role at Coronado, maintenance worker by day, guardian by night, watching over the next generation of warriors as they were forged in the same fires that had created her. She kept in touch with her team. Brennan had returned to retirement, but this time it was different, peaceful, instead of restless. Elena was running a trauma clinic for veterans, putting her skills to use, healing the wounds that didn't show on the surface. Tommy had been recruited by the NSA, his technical abilities finally recognized by people who could use them properly. And Holloway? Holloway had surprised everyone. His assignment to Alaska should have been the end of his career. A dead end. A punishment for daring to challenge the established order. Instead, he'd transformed it into something new. He'd started a mentorship program for young officers, teaching them the lessons he'd learned the hard way about humility, about service, about earning respect instead of demanding it. The program had grown spread to other bases, attracted attention from brass, who'd written him off years ago. He was making a difference, not the way his father had wanted, not through connections and privilege and family name, but through hard work and genuine change. Maya received updates occasionally, brief messages through encrypted channels. Nothing personal, just facts. But she read between the lines. She saw the man he was becoming, and she felt something she rarely allowed herself to feel. Pride. 1 year to the day after the Yemen mission, Maya received a visitor. She was in the maintenance shed organizing supplies when the door opened and Admiral Crawford walked in. He looked older than she remembered, more tired. But there was something else in his face, too, satisfaction, maybe. Completion. "Admiral." She didn't stop working. "You're a long way from Washington." "I'm a long way from a lot of things." Crawford pulled out a chair, sat down heavily. "I'm retiring Phoenix. End of the month." Maya's hands stilled. "Retiring. 42 years is enough. More than enough." He smiled wearily. "There are only so many crises one man can handle before the crises start handling him." "What will you do? Fish, garden, drive my wife crazy?" The smile faded. "And think about all the things I should have done differently." "You did everything you could." "Did I?" Crawford shook his head. "I let them bury you, Maya. I let the program get shut down. I let good operators, good people disappear into the shadows because it was politically convenient. That wasn't your choice. Maybe not, but I could have fought harder. Should have fought harder." He was quiet for a moment. "Price got 25 years. Federal prison. No possibility of parole." "I heard. The prosecution built their case without your testimony, just like you wanted." "Good. Senator Chen testified instead, told the court what his son went through, what you did to bring him home." Crawford paused. "He never mentioned your name, never gave any details that could identify you, but everyone in that courtroom understood who he was talking about." Maya said nothing. What was there to say? "There's one more thing," Crawford continued. "Something I need to give you before I go." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box, opened it to reveal a gold trident pin. Maya's breath caught. The seal trident. The most recognizable symbol in special operations. A badge that represented everything she'd sacrificed, everything she'd achieved, everything she'd never been officially recognized for. "No records," Crawford said quietly. "No official acknowledgement. But this says what paper never could. You earned it 8 years ago when you completed training. You've earned it every day since, and you sure as hell earned it in Yemen. I can't. You can. And you will." Crawford pressed the box into her hands. "Take it, Phoenix. Not as validation, you don't need that, but as proof. Proof that someone saw what you did. Someone knows what you sacrificed. Someone will remember even when the files are sealed and the records are redacted and the official history pretends you never existed." Maya looked at the trident, felt its weight, felt everything it represented. "Thank you, Admiral." "Thank you, Captain." Crawford smiled at her surprise. "Oh yes, that's official as of this morning. Backdated to your first mission. You won't find it in any database, won't see it on any roster. But in the records that matter, the ones kept by people who know the truth, you're Captain Maya Sterling, United States Navy, the youngest female operator in the history of American special operations. A captain who doesn't exist. The best kind." Crawford stood up. "Take care of yourself, Phoenix. Take care of these young operators coming up behind you. And remember, you're not alone. You never were." He walked to the door, paused. "One last thing. That young woman you encouraged during Hell Week, the one you nodded to in the surf. What about her? She graduated yesterday, top of her class." Crawford's smile was genuine now. "She asked about you, wanted to know who the woman was who gave her the strength to keep going." "What did you tell her?" "I told her the truth, that some heroes don't need names. They just need to be remembered by the people whose lives they changed." He was gone before Maya could respond. She stood alone in the maintenance shed, holding a trident that represented everything she'd fought for, everything she'd become. Captain Maya Sterling. Phoenix. Ghost. That night, Maya walked the beach at Coronado. The same beach where she'd nearly drowned during Hell Week. The same sand where she'd crawled on hands and knees, certain she was going to die. The same waves that had tried to break her and failed. The fog rolled in from the Pacific, thick and gray and endless. It swallowed the world around her until nothing existed except the sound of the surf and the feeling of sand beneath her boots. She thought about everything that had brought her here. The foster homes, the violence, the loneliness that had been her only constant companion for the first 17 years of her life. The shopping mall where everything changed. The terrorist with a bomb. The seal she'd saved with nothing but a mop handle and 3 seconds of impossible courage. Crawford finding her in the aftermath. Recognizing something in her that no one else had seen. Offering her a chance at something better. Bud S. Hell Week. The moment she'd almost quit, and the instructor who'd pushed her to keep going. The missions, the blood, the friends she'd buried, and the enemies she'd defeated. Yemen, Price, Holloway, the hostages she'd carried out of darkness. All of it had led here. To this beach. To this moment. To a woman who'd started with nothing and built something extraordinary. Maya pulled the trident from her pocket, held it up to catch the moonlight. She'd never wanted recognition, never needed medals or parades or her name in the papers. She'd done what she did because it needed to be done, because someone had to stand in the gap, because the world was full of people who needed saving, and not enough people willing to do the saving. But holding this trident, feeling its weight, understanding what it meant. For the first time in her life, Maya Sterling felt seen. Not as a weapon, not as an asset, not as a ghost who existed only in the spaces between official records, as a person, a warrior, a hero. She slipped the trident back into her pocket, turned to face the ocean. Somewhere out there, someone was in trouble. Someone needed help that official channels couldn't provide. Someone was waiting for a ghost to walk through walls and bring them home. Maya would find them. She always did. Because that's what ghosts do. They disappear so others can survive. They sacrifice so others can live. They bear the weight of impossible choices so the rest of the world never has to know how close it came to falling apart. They laughed when she claimed to be a Navy SEAL. They mocked the cleaning girl with impossible stories. They demanded proof of what she'd done, where she'd been, who she'd saved. But some truths don't need headlines. They only need to be remembered by the ones who know. Maya Sterling walked into the fog, walked into obscurity, walked into the life she'd chosen. Behind her, the waves continued their eternal rhythm. The beach fell silent. The world kept turning. And somewhere in the darkness, a phoenix spread her wings and prepared to rise again. Because heroes aren't made in the spotlight. They're forged in the shadows, tested by fire, and defined by one simple choice to keep going when everything tells them to stop. Maya Sterling was living proof of that truth, and she was just getting started.